Welcome to Hidden Hilltop Homestead. Today we're going to be making a blanket using our Bernat EZ Blanket yarn. I'm going to show you a small demonstration piece and then I'm going to show you the finished product of the blanket I'm working on. So you're going to take your yarn, lay it out completely flat. It comes in these nifty little pre-made loops. You're going to decide how long you want your project to be. Pick that final loop and then you're going to take the loop next to your final loop and put it through the back of the final loop. So it's going to come out of the front and look like this, and then you're just going to do that the whole length of your project. So where our first row is that first initial line of loops, and then we're working on the second row here. So we're just going to take that loop and put it through the previous and pull it flat, and you're just going to keep doing that. You're going to line up the loops, make sure you don't skip any loops. You're going to put it through the back of the first loop and lay it flat. Again, through the back of the first loop and lay it flat. And you're just going to continue doing this all the way down your piece and trying to keep it flat and trying to keep it even to make sure that you don't have any missed loops. If you miss a loop, you'll have a space in your blanket and you'll also have a loop sticking out of the back of your blanket. If that happens, the best thing you can do is unwind your project to that missing loop. So it's good to always be checking the back of your project to make sure that you're not missing anything, because that's where it's going to show through. And occasionally the yarn's going to feel like it's kind of twisted, and all you're going to do is try to unwind the loops to where it feels like it's more naturally sitting flat on the surface. So when you get back to the beginning of your row, you're going to do the same exact thing that you did at the end of your first row. And you're going to take the next loop in line, put it through the back of that top loop, and pull it through flat. It's very easy. These things work up very fast. If you can sit down and watch a movie, you can probably whip up a blanket in an evening. And we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to make sure that our loops are lining up, that we're not missing any, and that we're trying to keep our project flat. And you're also going to try to make sure, so you can check the back and make sure you're not having any holes and no missed loops. And eventually you're going to come to the end of your skein. So I'm going to show you really quick how to add on your next skein. So I just take the loops and I overlap them, the last one and the first one of your new skein of yarn, and I put both of them through the current available loop. So you're just holding them to make sure that they stay together, because you're acting like this is just one continuous piece of yarn here. We clip them together. I use a little, that's a sewing clip. You can use like a paper clip or a clothesline pin, something to keep them together. You're just going to need that until you're working your next row and you're back to that loop. So you're just going to continue on your project like normal. And again, at the end, we're just putting the next loop through the back of the previous one, and we're just working the other direction. Now, if your skein ends on the very last loop of your blanket, you're literally just going to do the same thing. You're overlapping the last loop of the current skein with the first loop of the new skein. And you're just going to keep working it back through. Now when you get to that double loop that you have clipped together, you're literally just putting it through like any of the other ones. You just want to make sure that you put it through both loops, because you're treating those two overlapped loops like one. And then once you do that, you can undo your clip and just keep working your blanket as normal. You won't even notice that there was a joint there, because the blanket is so plush and it's not going to have any type of bulging or knots or anything like that. So it makes it very easy to join new skeins and even faster to work the blanket. You can make your blanket any size. You could even make a scarf or a pillow out of this stuff. And I like to make blankets that are 65 by 50 inches. So 65 inches long by 50 inches wide. And I feel like that makes the perfect size throw. And one tip when working through this, again, make sure that you're not missing loops. When you flip it over to the back, you're going to notice you have these horizontal lines that are from joining the loops. That's how it's going to look on the back, and then the front's going to have the pretty knitted design. Now I'm going to show you how to end your project. So when your blanket is the length that you want it, you're going to end it on the very last loop of your row. And I just cut off the excess. I usually like to work it until I have just a tiny bit left over on the skein to where I don't have enough to do another full row so I don't waste it. And you're going to take your second to last loop and put it through your last loop. And then you're going to take the one beside that and put it through that one. You're going through the back just like how you did the whole blanket, except this time we're moving and creating these chains. So you're just putting the next loop through the back of the first loop and then pulling it to the right. And you're just going to keep doing that, and it's going to create a chained finished hem to your blanket, and it's going to match the sides. See how this, as you're knitting the blanket, you create these chains on the sides just by going back and forth, so you're just basically finishing off the blanket. And that little piece on the corner, you can just take your scissors and trim that off. That's just a little bit of excess from when you cut the end of the skein of yarn off. Now finishing out your final row is very simple. You're literally just, again, working it clear to the very last available loop. And then what I like to do is grab a pair of scissors and cut that loop in the middle, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. We're going to put that last loop through. So this is like the final loop we have standing, and I just take a pair of scissors and trim the loop right in the middle. And then I'm going to take those two little strands that it now creates, and I'm going to go through the corner there. I'm just basically trying to tie a double knot. So whatever I can get those through on the very end, there's usually like 2 loops at the end that you can put those strands through, and you're tying a double knot just to secure that last loop. And this is the finished product. This is the throw blanket I was working on. This is the back. And then the front has that beautiful knitted variegated design. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you stick around, and we'll see you next time.